Hello, and welcome to another episode of Bad Lit Friends, the podcast that still barely knows what it's doing. I am Meagan Thompson-Mann, and this is my co-host.
Hi, I'm Kirk Rafferty.
We are here this evening recording without our amazing, wonderful co-host and producer, Rylan, who unfortunately has come down with a case of the dreaded lurgy and is hopefully recuperating and watching absolutely trash TV. I
So
really
she
hope
says, anyway.
I want this for her.
I have a theory that she's just tired of hanging around people that don't know what they're doing.
That's very possible. Also, I think that, we've set up some unrealistic expectations because my mother, hi mom, was in touch and said that this podcast needs more Rylan. And, that's a very heavy burden to bear. So
Yeah.
Rylan had to take to her fainting couch to recover from it.
I too think that the podcast needs more Rylan. So
I do too. I do too.
need to poke her in the ribs or something to speak up more.
And, I will point out that she is the producer. She does have control over how much she appears in the episode.
That's right.
So, there were definitely outtakes that could have been included. But so I thought we could update on where we are with our projects. I think I may actually be in a Kirk Rafferty level of productivity.
Which, what? So, like nothing?
Yeah, pretty much. Sorry. I wrote 102 words last night in
Okay.
my chapter that I need in order to finish this book finally. Beyond that, I had an amazing conference and I was able to get two agents who want me to query them as a result of being at the conference, one of whom was on my list. And yes, I gave her my business card. So if you're listening right now, trust me, you're going to get those pages in your inbox very soon. But overall, the conference was fantastic.
Yeah, it really was.
We recorded on Friday night. We had a full day on Saturday and into Sunday, and it was exhausting. We were talking before we started the episode about how tired we are after conferences, and then over the course of the week that follows the conference, you start thinking, God, I want to go back to a conference.
Yeah, it's exactly it. Like the day after the conference, I had to go to work too. I haven't been able to quit my day jobs. And I was just, exhausted from it. And I was like, I'm not doing another conference for, however, like, I don't know, a year or something. But, that lasts about 3 days. And then I've got a conference that I'll be going to in April.
Yeah, I've got one in January. And the keynote speaker on Saturday night was John Mabry, and he was fantastic.
Yeah, he really was.
What a talk he gave about his upbringing and how he came from one of the roughest neighborhoods, if not the roughest neighborhood in Philadelphia, Kensington, and how he was essentially talent spotted by a librarian. He went to the library as refuge from his abusive, violent household. He happened to meet this librarian who knew all of these famous writers, seriously famous writers
Yeah.
in New York.
Ray Bradbury.
Yeah, he became
Yeah.
Ray Bradbury's mentee. And he was a kid who needed an adult to believe in him. And he was so lucky as to find one. And it changed the total trajectory of his life. And it was inspirational without being like saccharine at all, because he's funny and he's smart. And
Yeah.
it was great. So I continue to beat on the if you can swing it, getting to a conference, do it. It's fantastic.
And next year at Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers Colorado Gold Conference, the keynote speaker will be Chuck Tingle, which if I wasn't planning to go next year, I definitely am now because I cannot wait to see Chuck Tingle. That'll be fantastic.
But in terms of writing, where are you after conference?
Yep. So I am still editing The Snow Maiden. I'll probably be editing that for a few months. I don't know, 6 weeks, let's call it. I did actually I picked up my outline for book 3, which is tentatively called The Odessa Job. I'm not sure that I'm in love with that title, but that's what I'm going with right now. So I have been kind of playing around with the outline on that. And I really like where it's going. So I'm pretty excited to start writing that again. I think, previously, I don't know, like 3, 4 episodes back, I think I said that I started writing, like, chapter 1, because I just wanted to kinda get a feel for it, and so I'm kind of excited to jump back in and actually start writing, but the Snowman is not going to edit itself, and so that's what I'm doing right now.
I have a confession to make. I wrote the first line of book 5 without writing books 3 or 4 or finishing book 2 or indeed finishing really book 1, but
Yeah,
I
that's
did.
not insane at all.
It's very short. This is it. Here's your preview of book 5. I quit my job on Tuesday.
Nice hook.
There you go. That's it. Having come from conference and having done that workshop on book 2, one of the things I got in the feedback was, why is this book not in the first person? Now, I do happen to think that book 3 should not be in first person, but I made me think about, well, what if book 5 were in first person? And, what would that look like? So instead of writing book 2 or indeed finishing book 1, I know I told you I'd be done with this book in 3 weeks, but I instead went to book 5 because this makes so much sense and was like, this is first person and this is the first line. Oh yeah, and then I had book 6. Don't forget.
You know that potentially one of the agents you queried is listening to this, right? So I'm sure that you're just inspiring all kinds of confidence.
I know, I know, I know. So book 6, based on a dream that I had. So in my real life, in my day job, I am a commercial real estate litigation lawyer. And I had a dream where I was pitching a book at a conference, and it was a rom-com about 1031 exchanges, which is 1031 is based on a really boring provision of the IRS code. Essentially, it's too boring. If you're really interested, you can Google it. I'm sorry. But in my dream, I was thinking it's about 1031 exchanges, and the tropes are grumpy sunshine and touch her and die. And I woke up and started laughing immediately and then wrote out this. And I will note this was at 6:07 in the morning, okay? When sunshine real estate agent Nora and grumpy luxury developer Garrett are brought together by a 1031 exchange gone wrong, they have 45 days to save their properties and even less time to figure out why he's ready to destroy anyone who looks at her wrong. And the title is Exchange Rates.
Riveting.
Book
Absolutely riveting.
book 6.
Fantastic.
I have a problem. But we actually also have a topic for this week, which is about writing rules. Show not tell. Writing rules ranked, debunked, and derided.
So you did a survey on this.
Did.
Yeah.
I wanted to find out, number 1, can you do a poll on Bluesky? Because I like to stay in my safe space of Bluesky. Sort of. You can through a third-party app. I did do a poll. It was limited. You could only have 4 options. So I put it to the people of Bluesky. Which writing rule makes you irrationally angry? Number 1, show, don't tell. Number 2, kill your darlings. Number 3, write what you know. And number 4, no adverbs, or as I put it, no adverbs. Bang! And we had 24 votes. I'm calling the poll closed. So you can still find it. It's still on the Bad Lit Friends Bluesky account. Feel free to cast one afterwards. It's not going to count. I won't count that against you. But right now, the winner of this ignominious poll is no adverbs, 9.
Yeah. People love their adverbs.
People do love their adverbs. And as we'll talk about later, sometimes not a bad idea. But, there are so many rules about this is how writing should be. So we talked about, what if we debunked a couple of these? What if we gave them on the fly rankings of whether or
Mhm.
not they're worthwhile, if they're conditional, if they're BS, whatever. So we're going to debate these live. So expect us to disagree on this. I don't know. I mean, I know Kirk pretty well, but occasionally we disagree on things. Occasionally. I have some tiers. We've got the sacred S tier, really good advice that applies pretty much universally. The A tier, solid rules, some exceptions. B tier, useful. You might outgrow them at some point. C tier, situationally helpful, sometimes misunderstood. D tier, dubious, straight up. And F, actively terrible advice that needs to die. Okay? So we will go through our these list of rules and we will grade them because we are humans. We like to sort and grade, or at least this human likes to sort and grade. I have many opinions, as I'm sure everybody knows by now.
Okay, Megan, I'll play your
Yes.
little game.
Okay. Let's start with some of the biggies. Okay.
Let's go from the lowest ranking to the highest ranking. So
Ooh.
what ranked the lowest?
From our poll. Okay. So the in terms of the worst, the most useless was no adverbs,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So, this is a very famously Stephen King said, no, don't write with adverbs. We have this beautiful English language that is filled with verbs that are strong and powerful and subtle. So why lean into adverbs when we have
Yeah.
so many great verbs?
I am going to okay, so I'm just gonna, put myself in front of the wall. And I actually agree with Stephen King on this. Because his advice is not like kill all your adverbs, like no adverbs, zero, right? His advice is most of them need to go. That's where I agree with him because I go through my own writing and I use adverbs occasionally. In fact, often I use them too often. So
Haha, so what you did there.
I use them too oftenly. So, yeah, I think that, the more adverbs you use, like, the more they stand out, and it just gets exhausting to read them.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you
Yeah.
that there can be too much of a good thing when it comes to adverbs.
Well, so I'll even go further and say that too many adverbs is like if you have I don't know, I'm gonna make up a number here and then I'm gonna die on that hill. I think if you have more than 2 adverbs a chapter, you're doing it way too often. I'm just
My
making that
heart!
shit up, but that is the hill I will die on from this moment going forward.
I am slain. I am slain. Passive voice. I do try to avoid it. But now maybe this is a function of us working in very different genres.
Could be.
Could be. If you are writing in a thriller genre, I can see how that could be true. I am going to say that I would not limit it to 2. I know where I am relying too much on adverbs,
Mhm.
and I do try to excise them wherever possible, but sometimes you do need them. And I will give an example. This is the one that I always think of. Sometimes someone is not whispering, they are speaking softly. They say something softly. There is a real difference between whispering and saying something softly.
Okay.
And that is a hill I will die on. I cannot think of a verb that gets me to where saying something softly is.
Why not instead of saying they say it softly, why not, they leaned in and spoke into their ear? So, of course, I'm sitting here in front of a microphone and I can't think of a really good alternative. Here's the other thing too, like context matters, right? So, if speaking softly sounds good in that moment, then okay. But you know what? If I'm reading your book and people are always speaking softly, I'm gonna throw the book across the room.
That's a difference. That's a difference. It
Mhm.
is it is so many of these things are contextual. And we have this robust, amazing language.
Why couldn't he
Yeah.
speak low?
Or s I also do speaking low. I also did the speaking
He
low.
spoke low.
He spoke
I
low,
don't know.
blah, 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 said
There's my
low. His voice was low, blah, blah, blah. But I hate his voice was low, bleh. But
Well, you know what? Why not whispered? Why not just whispered?
because
Come
sometimes
on,
you're not
Megan.
whispering. Sometimes you're not
It's
whispering. Sometimes you're just speaking low.
okay. I'm gonna man, I am lining myself up for all kinds of hate, but I challenge anyone to really give me a distinction between whispering and speaking softly.
I see. Okay. So I think this is definitely a genre based disagreement. I've been accused improperly of writing romance. I do not write romance. I write upmarket fiction with romantic elements.
So
But
you write upmarket romantically.
yes, I do, but there are times when it is, and I sometimes do it something like that somebody's voice drops, but then if there are other times where someone isn't whispering, they're bringing their voice down a
Mm,
little bit,
mhm.
just a little bit, and when we're speaking, we can
So they
obviously hear it.
lowered their voice.
But then if you have said that they lowered their voice or somebody lowered their voice, maybe person A lowered their voice, you don't then say person B also lowered their voice, or else you are sounding really weird and repetitive.
Okay, fair,
So
fair.
you're just it's all
Okay, so
contextual.
but this is a very specific use case you're putting into,
This is
right?
a
Now
Megan
you've got
this is a Megan
2
Thompson's Man
people
special.
speaking softly.
Th th This is an MTM special. And I'm not actually disagreeing with you that most adverbs can, be sent to the guillotine. Hippity hoppity, it's time for chippity choppity when it comes for adverbs. Yeah, I love adverbs in my spoken moments, but when it
Mm.
comes to a page, when you have too many of them clustering, feels cluttered, kind of gross sometimes, or worse, florid, purpley.
Well, I was about to say, to me, it often feels like a lack of imagination. And I am guilty of this lack of imagination. When I am trying to get words on a page and I need to move forward, yeah, I will be lazy as well and do these things. Now, this is why editing is so important. I think we could have an whole episode on editing, but that's where I do cut them out because I think I've said before, my first drafts are awful. My first drafts are just absolute garbage. I write terribly for my first drafts. So, you go in and you catch those in editing, and many, many times, I'm going to make up a figure, 90% of the time, you can chop that adverb and nothing is changed. There are some times when you're trying to emphasize something with that adverb. And in those instances, I would say, like, try to rephrase the sentence.
I agree with you. And sometimes when you're going through and you're editing, and I use AutoCrit for doing line editing, and it will catch all of your adverbs for you and
Mhm.
rank them for, show you like you used often, 6 times in this chapter, or that's a serious understatement, 12 times in this chapter. And you go through and you're like, "Okay, where are the places where I absolutely really need to have it in?" For example, dialogue. Dialogue is a very different creature from the other parts of your text, from the narrative of your text. People, like we're doing right here, when they're in dialogue, they will use adverbs willy-nilly, and it will feel normal and natural, and to remove them or over remove them starts to feel kinda, like, funky
Oh,
and
yeah.
weird. So, yeah.
Dialogue operates in special rules, and I honestly don't know. I should go back and look through my writing to see if my characters speak with adverbs. I'm not sure about that. But yeah, I wouldn't I mean, as long as your dialogue sounds natural,
Yeah.
I wouldn't go, "Oh, I should remove this adverb because Kirk says you should only have 2 every chapter, and I've already used up my allocation."
I mean, if you're playing by Rafferty rules, you need to no, but, when it comes to editing the narrative portions of my text, I am far more ruthless in removing adverbs. Even though I absolutely love them, I
Yeah.
also am mindful that they are often there for me because I like them, and
Mhm.
they don't really add anything. They are on the chopping block. I will add my vote on in this poll also went for, no adverbs 9 because I do love adverbs, but I also understand why the rule is generally correct. So if you are going to give it a grade, what grade would you give this rule?
Ooh, let's see. I'm gonna give it an A tier, solid rules with some legitimate exceptions. And no, you know what? No, I'm gonna own this. I'm gonna say S tier, actually good advice that applies almost universally.
That's a bold choice.
If I'm your writing coach, which God help you if you ever hire me to be a writing coach, I don't know why anyone would do that. But if you were to hire me as like that's where I break out, the ruler, and every time I see an adverb, I slap your knuckles.
Damn. I am sure that we have listeners who would be turned on by that, so don't get them too excited. Their kink may not be your kink, but, I still. Yeah,
Where would you put it?
okay. I'm going to shock everyone by grading this an A minus tier. I do think it is a solid rule, and I do think that there are legitimate exceptions. On the other hand, I think that you can go a little crazy with it and end up removing things that probably might help. I do think that once you are more used to doing it and understanding where adverbs are useful, you might not need it as much. I do think it's a great rule, but I'm definitely not going for sacred. And I think it's mostly solid, mostly solid.
And that brings up a good point, which is so, we're talking about rules of writing here, right? And I've said this before, I've said this many times. There are no unbreakable rules in writing, right? They can always be broken. I think it's important though to know the rule inside and out before you break it. If you're just breaking rules because you feeling edgy or whatever, I don't know, that's not going to fly with me as a reader. So you absolutely have to understand the rule, and then when you break it, you should understand why you're breaking it and why it still works that you're breaking it.
That is a very good point. That is a very good point. If you are breaking them, you should absolutely understand why you are doing it. Because if you're just breaking them, then you look like you don't know what the rules are.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
break them. These rules are there to be broken, but understand why you're breaking them in the first place. So
Yep. All right, what do we got for the next one?
next one. So it was a tie. So let's go for the evergreen show don't tell. Man, okay. Yeah. This is an interesting combination in my opinion of both truth and fiction, which is great for the truth fiction writer, right? Now, what does show don't tell mean to you, Kirk? I'm curious.
You're gonna put me on the spot.
I am.
Showing don't telling means to me, don't write your scene like it's an encyclopedia. You want to evoke the image of the scene. I have a character in one of my novels who's dealing with a stab wound, trying to get through my entire book with a freaking abdominal stab wound. And rather than, describing the wound, I describe the pain associated with it. I describe, the discomfort when she sits up, or so it's an infected wound. So I describe, the pus and the smell of it, and things like that, right? You're evoking something rather than just encyclopedically, there's an adverb, describing it.
Yeah, I just wrote this chapter the other week where the main character she's talking at the beginning of the chapter about her mother used to kind of bang on about the importance of heeding signs that the universe is sending us, and one of them is that you should always trust your gut, right? Especially when it comes to men. And throughout the chapter, she is feeling gastric distress that she puts down to having had a very rich meal the night before. As the chapter kind of winds on, you see her gut is reacting to something feeling off about the situation, and that it's not actually that she ate too much lasagna last night.
Mhm.
So that's showing, not telling, because she's talking about her stomach flipping
Yeah.
or something pinching, or that is
You're not saying she felt uneasy.
she felt
You're just
uneasy and
yeah.
she's like, "The fuck is wrong with all these fucking men in my
Yeah,
life?"
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you didn't write, "She felt uneasy." You wrote about the sensations, like, going on in her belly, right? That's showing, not telling. So, what's your take on show versus tell?
I would say an A tier. It is the and I will tell you why it's not an S tier, why it is not sacred for me. Because there are times where telling is absolutely important. Like,
Mhm.
you need to move things forward quickly. You need to do some sort of exposition dump. There are boring logistics that need to be summarized. I say this as somebody who will dwell in the minutiae to, to show
Mhm.
things. And then I get to it, I'm like, I just wrote a 6,000 word chapter, and no. And I end up having to, pare it down and
Yeah.
prune
Yeah.
it. And, I'm like, that's fun. That's really well put. Like dig up the darlings. That's one to come. And, go plant them in the earth and come back to them at some other time because you need to balance, exposition with showing what's happening. I would say mostly you wanna be showing that the telling should be the minor, but there are times when it's necessary to move plot along or you're gonna have a 1,000-page,
Yeah.
monstrosity.
I would agree with that. When you want to be in the moment, you're gonna be doing your showing. And so for example, like, I hesitate to come up with, like, exceptions to the show don't tell rule because I can think of exceptions to those exceptions, right? But, for example, like, if you need to quickly convey some backstory, you're more likely going to tell that backstory. Although I have a scene in my book where I'm showing the backstory, and it seems to work for me. So, I mean, for every rule, there's an exception, and then there's probably exceptions to the exceptions, and ad nauseam. It's turtles all the way down, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But I think that really hits it on the head. Is there are times when you need to just get through it. There are times when you are going to, I don't know, luxuriate in it more, I guess. I would also put that as a, yeah, A tier, a solid rule with some legitimate exceptions. Yeah, yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
That's an A
Yeah,
tier.
it's a good one. The concept of it really used to, I don't know, scramble my brain
Mhm.
because I didn't understand what telling was. It wasn't the showing I had a problem with, it was the telling,
Yeah, yeah.
which will tell you a lot about what my problem is, which is chronic overwriting. But the feedback that you're getting from your critique partners, alpha readers, your beta readers is not that you are telling too much, right?
Mhm.
Then you're probably doing it okay. People pick up on it. Telling is so boring unless it is necessary, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you can feel the difference between something that you can show and something that you can tell. And
absolutely.
adverbs kind of plug into that, right? So you were just saying, like, could he bring his face closer? Or is it so spoke softly?
He
You'll
spoke in a
you'll
hushed tone.
he spoke in hushed
They're
tone.
just they're just coming to me as we're going along.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah. I
just
know.
like, "Yeah, your argument is getting weaker and weaker, Megan."
I am not wrong. I reserve the right. I reserve the right to bring an appendix to this episode at a later date with more examples of what I mean and why I'm right. So, thank you. That is my line. So, let's move on to number 3 on the list, which was kill your darlings.
There are several ways to interpret that, and I think it highly has to do with the genre. So, if you're writing a traditional romance, not a lot of killing going on in a romance, right? So, in that context, I think what killing kill your darlings means is get rid of any superfluous characters. If you've got, a cast of a dozen in your romance, it might be a little too many, right? In your romance, maybe one of your leads works in a cupcake shop and they have 3 bakers who work for them, right? Maybe those 3 bakers could be consolidated down into 2 or 1 additional baker, right? So, for example. On the other hand, well, and actually that advice can be across genres. Now, I think of Kill Your Darlings so I write in the thriller genre. I think of Kill Your Darlings as just like License to Kill. And I love creating a character who readers fall in love with and then killing them. I will just say that right
You're
out
a
of the gate.
bastard. Straight to jail.
I love Kill Your Darlings. So unlike the other rules, to me this rule is kind of cut and dry in that there are times when if you're writing a genre where people don't often keel over, aren't often massacred, I feel like, an editor is going to be able to tell you your cast is too big. So you need to cut your cast. You need to kind of up. So for me to kind of rate Kill Your Darlings, Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna say it's a sacred rule. I'm gonna throw that up there. S tier sacred. Actually, good advice that almost that applies almost universally. I think that if you're writing a genre where people don't often die, then you should look at, using only the number of characters that you need. And if you're writing horror or thriller or crime or whatever, man, I don't know. Let the bodies fly. That's what I say.
Wow, it's inspirational.
What
So
do you got, Megan?
so for me, kill your darlings has a different meaning, which is that darlings are the shit that you write for yourself, or the things that you may not understand that you're writing for yourself, your little indulgences, your little flights of fancy.
Oh,
And I am at this moment looking at this huge, this is not even all of it. The things that I cut from my first draft that weren't even chapters, just little phrases, couple of paragraphs. I wrote these and I realized that none of these moved any of the plot along.
yeah,
And this is
yeah.
only version 1. I'm currently on version 8 right now, and I'm looking at them. I have not looked at some of these for well over a year, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that's pretty fucking good."
Yeah.
And I'm looking, I'm like, "This is good." I actually probably should reread this because I think that I can steal some of this, and it's not stealing if it's your own work. I look at it like, "This is really good," and that's when I start going, "Okay, that's exactly why I needed to remove it because
Mhm.
this is written for me because nobody needs to read an extended piece about heliocentrism in the middle of an upmarket contemporary novel." It is really hard when you write something that you love that feels so much of yourself, like you have poured,
Yeah.
your essence into this thing and it expresses something. And especially when it works, when it really works, and you're like, that is a beautiful sentence. To understand that if it doesn't serve the plot, it really needs to go. Then you start
Mhm.
getting into if you're someone like me, you're like, why does the man say I need to remove this? Why do I have to do what the man says when it comes to plot? And then you realize, well, the man is the man that will sell your book. And most people don't want to read really self-indulgent things that are really for you, right? That don't have much other purpose but to remind you of like, I am rather good at this writing lark. So, no. So, what I do, and I'll tell you, is that I scoop them up, I take them out, I put them in a scraps file, and I'm like, someday I'll go back and I'll see if there's something else. Because there was something that I learned at one writing conference, it must have been last year, which was kill your darlings, but know where you bury the bodies.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know where I.
And that's a great point. And so you're right. I went with the more literal translation of "kill your darlings," but in terms of knowing what to cut, you're absolutely right. And it's not always just self-indulgent. It's also just prose that doesn't move things along. "Hi, Bob. How was your day?" "Oh, my day was great, Jim. How was your day?" "I did some spreadsheets," or whatever. Like there are things that happen in real life and you think that you might be I'm building a world. I'm building reality into my book. Nobody cares about that. In fact, think about the last time anybody went to the bathroom in a book you read or a movie you saw or whatever, and that character didn't go in there to riffle through the medicine cabinet and find something
Twice in my
interesting,
book.
right?
Twice in my book.
Yeah,
2
and
different
what did you do?
bathrooms.
And what did
In one of them, she was taking a break in the middle of a emotionally fraught
Mhm,
dinner
mhm.
party to basically be like, I might got this, I don't know." And then the other characters immediately start banging on the door and telling
Yeah,
her to
yeah.
come out. And in the
In
other
other
one,
words,
she's
like,
having yeah.
something's happening.
Yeah, and in the other one, she's having a conversation on a phone
Mhm.
in a bathroom, and she's going through the medicine cabinet and, like, inspecting a bottle of Tums and wondering, like, how long do Tums stay good after they technically expire? Because she's got gastric distress. As someone who has gastric distress, my characters also have gastric distress, I'm sorry. But they're doing things. They're not peeing, they're not pooping, they're inspecting medicine cabinets, or
Mhm,
they're going, "What the fuck am I doing in that other
mhm.
room?" That's it. Yeah. Yeah. It is. Yeah.
Right. So you are in some way either advancing the plot, you're
Yeah.
building character, you're doing something right. And you know what? There's actually a way that you can, if you really want people using the bathroom in your book because that adds reality or something like that, then let's go back to the show versus tell, right? Just tell. She used the bathroom and then she grabbed her keys
That's
and
right.
drove
That's
away
right.
into the night. So,
From
yeah.
from the hallway, Dave called, you know, "Mary, how long are you going to be?" Mary tried to, struggled to hide the strain in her voice, "Any moment now!"
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Well,
I didn't write that.
we
Okay,
all
that was
wanted
on
to
the
hear that.
yeah, sorry. I will give this a ranking, though. I will say that this is S tier, sacred, okay? I do think that you should kill your darlings. That was a hard one for me. I now am a member of the cult and, have fully, imbibed the flavor aid on that one. That one I think we can agree on. So coming in last place is write what you know. So, if you write romantasy, do you need to be fae?
Yeah. Do
No.
you need to own a dragon? So Write What You Know has always been a very mysterious thing to me. In fact, there was a very long time, like when I was probably a teenager, that I thought I was a terrible writer because I did not understand what that meant. Because surely, I read a lot of fantasy at the time, a lot of science fiction, and surely J.R.R. Tolkien doesn't know what it's like to live in a hobbit hole, right? Although, I don't know, the way he wrote, I was sometimes convinced. And to this day, I'm still not sure I have a firm handle on write what you know. And so what I choose to believe this means is just write what you can write about. And I'll give you an example. I don't think, not without a lot of effort, I'm not sure that I could write. Okay, there's this book. I am forgetting the title, and I am so sorry to the author because you really want to read it. It is a book about a zombie outbreak on a submarine. And apparently, these details on the submarine are fantastic. Like the actual submarine detail, I think the author might have even been a submariner, are fantastic, right? This is not something I could write, not because I can't write zombies, but because I would get submarines, and I was in the Navy. I would get submarines wrong. Having said that, if I really, really wanted to write something about being on board a submarine, I would do the research, and then I would know what to write, and then I would be writing what I know.
That's kind of how I look at it. In my first book, there's a big chunk that takes place at Yale. I went to Yale. I also grew up in New Haven. So I know these places like the back of my hand. I also don't kind of dwell in it, but I use it because I know what these places look like. I can write about them in detail from memory. And also because I go home all the time, I
Mhm.
can go and look at them myself. I also write about types of relationships that I've never been in or that I've
I just
not.
wanna interrupt you. It
Yeah.
might have been vampires on a submarine. No.
Okay. Yeah. No. So I know about that, but I also write about types of relationships that I've never been in, that I never will be in, like student and professor. Thankfully, never had that. I did see up close and personal a friend at college who was in a relationship with her graduate assistant, which was, this being the 90s, was not actually forbidden at the time. Yeah, but I could see how kind of weird and messed up that was to my eyes, and the power imbalance. So I know it, but only at a remove.
Mhm.
And some of these things that I write about, I only know about from like that kind of remove from having observed it and people I know, or but frankly from like reading books, watching TV, watching movies, listening to podcasts, and taking it in and making notes. So I know them in the sense that I have researched about them or experienced them things either firsthand or secondhand, or even heard a story about it. I'm forever collecting really weird ass shit that people say to me about like things that they've done or that their friends have
Mhm.
done. And I immediately write it down. Actually, I have to share this one because I fucking love this one. And Kelsey, I'm sorry about this. It's so, for example, I at some point need to work into because this was So when someone saying that they were completely out of it, and they're like, "Well, what did you take?" I think I did ecstasy, like, accidentally," and I'm like, "I love that." Like, I don't know if I did or not. Wonderful. Where do you go from there? If you have a character who thinks that they might have taken ecstasy?
Yeah,
I have also
yeah.
never taken ecstasy, so I will also need to be, like, collecting this information. I love it. So I'm a magpie, and I will steal from you. If you show me anything shiny, I'm going to write it down. I'm really sorry, and I will put it in somewhere. But I don't know these things, but you can do research. Yeah, no, nobody's gonna be very few, very this is the lawyer in me, very few, if any, people are riding dragons. Okay. So, but yeah.
And that's why Write What You Know seems a little gatekeepery to me, I
Yeah.
guess. I don't think there is a Write What You Know gatekeeper. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, so, like fantasy writers, they imagine entire worlds, right? They're not doing, well, I mean, some of them aren't doing a bunch of research, just they're kind of taking their own, what they've experienced in their life. Maybe they played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. Maybe they watched, cartoons or whatever with these elements in it, and they've just kind of mishmashed them together. They've developed their own world. They are writing what they know, even though they've never actually met a dragon.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, and we're not saying, like, it's cool to be, pull a Rachel Dolezal and say, like, "Hey, I'm black, even though I'm white." We're saying, like, it's okay to imagine dragons. I don't actually like Imagine Dragons, but, you could
yeah.
you could imagine dragons.
All right.
And
So where would you grade this?
I would grade this probably a B minus to C.
Yeah, I'm gonna go solid C, right? Situationally helpful at best, often misunderstood.
Yeah.
I spent most of my writing career not understanding it.
I think I will go for a C as well. I don't think this is a particularly useful rule. Maybe in the beginning, if you need to feel comfortable writing
Mhm,
something,
mhm.
but after that, it can hold you back.
And I'll just make the point too, we're talking about fiction, right? If you're
Yes.
writing nonfiction, that's probably a whole different discussion
Yeah,
that
I
I am
mean,
not equipped to have.
yeah, unless you're writing, satire.
Or if you're writing fiction based on you're fictionalizing actual events, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's because if you don't get those actual events right, everybody will tell you, and they'll be very happy to tell you exactly why you were wrong. So, unless you are being clear that, like, this is a highly fictionalized version of some real events, even then people will say, "That's not what happened." How do I know that? Because I'm the person who will say, "Well, that's not what happened."
Mhm, mhm,
I'm deeply offended. I will never read any of your books again. So, next up, not in the poll, avoid passive voice.
mhm.
Yeah, okay. Generally, my opinion, generally a good rule. If we're talking narrative and not dialogue, go back to that topic
Sure.
again. But
And we've already established, like, dialogue has its own
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
It's its own thing, yeah.
Yeah, it's not just weaselly, it is, in my opinion, kinda lazy. I say this as somebody who drifts into passive voice all the time,
Mhm.
and I don't even notice that I'm doing it. But there are also times, I think, that there are constructions that are technically passive voice that don't read like passive voice, if that makes any sense. So, for example, something like he was walking along the sidewalk and the ladder fell on him.
Mhm.
I don't really have an issue with that. But those kind of examples are so rare. Most of the times it's going to be something like the window was broken. It says almost nothing, right? They feel like empty words. How was it broken? Who broke the window? Where was it broken? What kind of window was it? It ends up posing more questions that you will then need to fill with active voice.
Well, and it also the description passive is very apt because it feels passive. It feels like your character has been sidelined. I'm gonna stand up against the wall here again. I take the same stance with passive voices I do with adverbs, and that is you can occasionally get away with it. But it's insidious. Once it starts creeping in, all of a sudden you've got entire scenes that just sound like your character was just standing back and either watching it all happen or letting it all happen to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that it's boring. It's boring. And then, if you have a character that you are hopefully trying to make an active participant in your book, you're undermining what you're setting out to do in the first place. Right. So if you want somebody who's an agent, sometimes things will happen to them. That's the reality of if they're always, smashing in and grabbing things and barreling ahead, they're, Tom Cruise and this is Mission Impossible. And, it is not your gentle, cozy mystery. It's something altogether. At the same time, you don't want to balance it the other way.
And it doesn't even have to be so much active. You can say Bob painted the house is active. The house was painted by Bob is passive. Neither one of those are like, actiony type. I mean, an action is happening, but it doesn't feel actiony, right?
Yeah.
Another Is that an
Actually,
adverb? It's not.
it's an adjective.
It's an yes. I are a writer. So one just sounds naturally better than the other, right? Like Bob painted the house.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The house was painted by Bob.
Yes.
And of course, there are gonna be exceptions, as we said before. But if you read it out loud to yourself, if it sounds weak or fussy or strange or
Mhm.
it's probably wrong. If this is the language we're writing in, we're probably familiar with it. So if it feels funky, it probably is funky.
So where are you gonna grade this?
Yeah, this is an S tier for me.
Yeah, me too,
Yeah, this
for
is
sure.
not a hard one, not a hard one. Here's a fun one. How many times can you use the verb say or said before you start feeling like you need to jazz things up? And when does jazzing stuff up start getting super weird?
Yeah,
Um,
dialogue tags, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So there are some fun ones. The there we go, passive, nice. Wisdom is that said and to greater or lesser extent, asked are invisible dialogue tags so that ideally your readers will not see them on the page. They'll just see the dialogue. That's a great idea. It's also not real, in my opinion. You can say said so many times, even when you are, and I do try to do this, is break up instead of using dialogue, using action tags so you're not just saying, Carlos said, and Diana said, and, Carlos said again. Diana said. You're breaking it up with action tags by, saying, that was the bus outside. Diana continued to clean the dish, the one that you were supposed to catch, right? So that you're not doing said all the time.
Right,
At the
right.
same time, when you start overloading with dialogue tags, it starts becoming obvious. So you can, in my opinion, in my, unpublished opinion, you can and probably should add a couple of other things. You can added occasionally or, shouted,
Ejaculated.
not ejaculated. Yes.
That's
Yes.
my favorite dialogue
It
tag ever.
is, yeah, such a man. But it's yes, sparingly. Ejaculated almost never, let's say. But it is, I think sparingly, yes. Thoughtfully, yes. When it expresses the way that you are saying something so that you can avoid using an adverb, for example, 100%. But when you start jazzing things up a little bit too much, it becomes glaringly obvious. You want all of this stuff to kind of fade into the background because you want to focus on what's going on in the dialogue. If
Mhm,
you're doing
mhm.
dialogue, there's a reason why you're doing dialogue, hopefully.
So outside of the invisible tags said and asked, I am not a big fan of other dialogue tags. And so I use strategies, sort of what you mentioned, embedding action in between dialogue to avoid, if I'm doing said too many times, replied.
Replied. That's a good one. Yes.
So I use replied when I'm replying to a question, right? So between said, asked, and replied, and occasionally kind of embedding dialogue within actions, I have it mostly covered. I rarely, feel the need to use another tag. If I do, I can't even think of an example. If it's not, let's say it's not obvious, or I want to kind of emphasize what the, and obviously that's what other dialogue tags do. But let's say that, where were you last night? I was working late. He lied. I mean,
Yeah,
even
yeah,
that
yeah,
doesn't sound great to me, but at least I mean, I would rather, show, right? Not tell,
yeah,
like he
yeah.
fidgeted, he was cagey, whatever. Yeah, I rarely go outside the standard dialogue tags.
So I just popped into a random chapter in my manuscript for book 1, and I have someone purring. So so they're
Hmm,
trying to elicit something from someone and "Go on, Roddy purred."
yeah.
And then,
No, I can see that, I can
"It's
see that.
fine," Charles said in a soothing tone. "You don't have to
Is
share."
that how he replied?
No, 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 it's
Is
there are
that
3
somewhere
people
else?
together. So
Okay.
there's 2 people trying to get a 3rd person to cough up a little bit of information by reassuring her. But then, most of this is said, 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 said. Someone repeats someone. Someone said, "Not all," Charles said, lifting a finger. "Not all," Roddy repeated, "but many." So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, and I can't remember if you just said this earlier, because I have the attention span of a goldfish. You can also use no dialogue tag at all if you've got a back and forth conversation going on, right? And that's, I use that pretty frequently too.
You'll know when it feels right, hopefully. It can be fun to write all of these, kooky, said alternatives. Some of them are just feel so on the money, and occasionally, those are the ones that feel that I would say, go ahead and use them if they feel absolutely on the money and you're doing it for effect, right? As long as you're not, as they say, over egging the pudding, you can get through it because sometimes it's right, but said yes, asked yes, replied yes. You're almost certainly not going to go wrong until you start doing too many of them. Break it up. If you can just do no dialogue tags or break it up with action tags, great. Just pay attention to what you're doing. Where would you rate this one? What grade would you give it?
Yeah, I think I would give this a, so personally for my writing, I think it's an S tier, a sacred, good advice that applies almost universally. That's just my style of writing. I think if I'm standing in front of somebody and giving them writing advice, I would say it's probably an A tier, like solid rule with some legitimate exceptions. I think if you are, I feel like this, I guess, I feel the same way as like with adverbs. Like it doesn't take too much of it to start overdoing it. Like your purred example, if somebody replies in that same scene, like I think that would bother me a little bit
Yeah,
with if
yeah.
they've got a weird dialogue tag.
No, that's definitely the funkiest one in that chapter.
I had this thing I was doing for a while. I didn't notice while I was writing, but I noticed as I was editing, I was using growled for some reason. Big strong man or something, like, stop right there. He growled. I don't know where that came from. I was like, get rid of this shit.
Yeah, I had a lot of snapping I
Snap. Yeah, he
yeah, people
snapped.
snap
She
at each other
snapped.
all the time.
Yeah.
Snapped.
Yeah.
But
She snapped back. Yeah.
yeah. Uh, I would also put it at an A tier. I think that pretty much across the board, it's good advice, and there are some exceptions, but they are exceptions. This is like kinda
Hmm.
like A plus almost. So I like to like get into the real fine grading here, but
Hmm.
it's somewhere between A and S for me.
Mm.
But prologues, never use them. Uh, yeah. I will straight up tell you, I I'm not a fan. I rarely read them in the type of fiction that I'm reading these days, but when I read a lot of romance, they're fairly common
Hmm.
in historical romances to have prologues. I When they were done well, they did add to the plot, but then it made me think, why.
Yep, yeah, exactly. I do feel like prologues are having a bit of a moment just in the books that I tend to be picking up, but I'm with you. Not a fan of prologues. I haven't written a prologue in any of my books. I don't see myself I'm gonna give myself an out here. I don't see myself using a prologue in the future, but I'm not gonna totally discount it. And so my rule for a prologue, you hit it right on the head, is could it be a chapter? Could it be chapter 1? If it can be chapter 1, make it chapter 1. The other thing, about a prologue is can you take that same information and just give it to me, like, sprinkle it through the first maybe third of the book or something? If you can do that, like, chop your prologue, and I'll tell you where I will throw the book across the room. If your prologue is nothing but world building, like, I'm done with your book. I'm just done with it. I don't wanna read that. I would rather you introduce your world through your main character's eyes to me.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. It is if you can work it in, work it in. Sometimes I look, I say this as somebody who thought I've got this really important thing and I've just chopped an entire chapter. How will I ever get this information in? I could get it in 2 sentences. I've
Mhm.
found shocking. You can do it. Sometimes they work though. It is interesting, or it's a jumping off point for what turns out to be another novel in this universe is threading in this prologue, and I find that really interesting. I won't know until later, but yeah, sometimes it works. Well, I will give a corollary to this. I like epilogues. Don't
Haha.
put them in the same category as prologues, because I do like to think I love to think about these characters having their own real lives just continuing on after I close the book, and if you can give me, like, a little taste, 10 years down the line, like, everybody's happy, everybody's miserable, "Oh, there's a baby. Oh, there's a new dog." Yeah, I'm interested. I'll
Sure,
lap it up.
sure.
Yeah, sure.
So I will say that I have a epilogue in The Snow Maiden, the book I'm currently editing. I love this epilogue for this book. It's the first time I've ever been serious about an epilogue, but it absolutely works for this book. I'm super excited about it. I'm not going to say anything about it because it's just a really fantastic way to end this book. And the idea for the epilogue came to me as I was writing the final chapter of the book. And I was like, oh, I got to do this. I got to do this. So epilogues are definitely a different animal than a
Yeah,
prologue,
yeah.
for sure.
You're not getting world, building in your epilogue.
Yeah, well, I mean, hopefully the reader knows everything they need to know about your world by the end of the last chapter, right?
And yeah, and maybe it's got a teaser for the next book. And yeah, I don't see them as being the same animal, at all. All they serve is, I mean, yeah, they're bookends, right? And they've both got a suffix of log, right? So it is, pro and epi, logos, right? So it's the, beginning and after. I want the action. I want the book. So I don't mind if it comes after. It's just, the whipped cream on the cake that I just
Yeah.
ate all of.
I think rules for an epilogue should be like, I shouldn't have to read your epilogue for the complete
Yeah,
story,
I
I
think
feel
that's
like,
true.
right?
Yeah,
Like the
yeah.
epilogue, yeah, like you say, it's the whipped cream on top, right? The main story has been completed.
It's the last scene after the credits, right? In your Marvel movie.
Yeah,
It's
that's
it's
right. That's right.
right? It's fun. It's something fun. It's something for the people who are really interested, but you don't need it, ideally. So, I would put probably A minus, B plus for no prologues. Sometimes they work, but generally, I don't know. Maybe that's just, what I read, but
I will go like an A plus tier or an S minus tier,
wow.
right?
Okay.
I feel this strongly about prologues because it is the rare prologue that I have read that works well. When they work well, they work well. Typically they work. I'm trying to think of genres. I read a little bit of horror. And I feel like horror often gets it right. When I say often, I don't even no genre in my mind gets it right often. So
Okay.
if you're thinking about writing a prologue, man, I would just reconsider. Put that information, sprinkle it within your book in the first third or however many chapters, or just if you can read when I was a kid, I used to just skip prologues completely. I thought they were completely unnecessary, and I never felt like I missed anything from the story. So, if your prologue could be ripped out of the book and I still get a good story,
Yeah.
you don't need it.
So let's do a rapid fire round.
Okay.
Okay. Never use semicolons.
No, I love semicolons. The D,
Yeah, D.
yeah.
F, like, just BS.
Or yeah, F. No,
F.
it's legitimate punctuation. You use it where it makes sense.
And, look, if you are using a semicolon, you're less likely to have somebody say, "Oh, you're using an M dash. You're AI." Off with your
Right.
head. So, yeah, sorry. Don't use exclamation points.
Oh, yeah, I'm a big fan of not using exclamation points. In fact, my first book, I went through and realized I had something like some god awful number, like 40 or 50. It was a ridiculous number. I went through and I think that manuscript, that's a 90,000 word manuscript. I think I have 3 exclamation points in it. I'm not a fan of the exclamation point. I don't know why I had so many in there. Sometimes you just get in the moment, you're like, "Oh, he's yelling." It's an exclamation point. You don't actually need an exclamation point to indicate that somebody's yelling.
I've just gone through and I have many. I assume they are all in dialogue. Yeah. There's a lot, which will tell you my grade without me having to say much more. So this is my grade. If you, I would say B, and that is conditional. That is probably A for narrative, and then probably C to D for I. There are people shout a lot in some of my writing, in which case
Yeah,
I think it's okay. I don't know. It's a stylistic thing, and don't come for my exclamation points. They are pointy, I will use them on you. Do not come for them. So, chapters should be exactly whatever number of pages long, right? So, I've seen this is actually something I saw this week, people getting testy online, like, chapters should not be longer than 10 pages long.
that's a dumb rule.
It's a terrible rule, and not just because I write
That
long
is
chapters.
I would love to know what whoever is saying that is backing that with, because I've seen the same writer have one book with long chapters and one book and a different book with short chapters, right? Like your chapter is as long as it needs to be. Now,
Exactly.
should your chapter be 200 pages? Probably not. But
No,
your
yeah.
chapter should be as long as it needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, when I was writing book 1, there was a chapter that I split because it was a very long chapter, but it also had a natural place I could split it, right? It felt unwieldy at the length that it was. I found a perfect place to break it. I broke it. It doesn't lose anything from it. But at the same time, if it couldn't have been broken, I would have left it. I probably just would have really tried to pare it back more because at that point, like, no, it's probably too wrong. Yeah, I would give that an F. I
Yeah.
would give that a straight up
What's
F.
lower than an F? Yeah.
Yeah,
A F minus. I would
F
give it an F
minus. Yeah,
minus.
that's right.
That's a
Yeah,
dumb take.
yeah. Unranked. Awful. Never use flashbacks.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
F.
F, F.
Both of my books have extensive flashbacks, for plot purposes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, book 1 has an entire chapter or almost an entire chapter that is a flashback because it needs to be a flashback. And there are some additional flashbacks that are relatively short. I don't think that book 2 has any flashbacks. Hey, I'm still writing it, things could change, but I don't have a problem with flashbacks.
I actually use flashbacks for kind of a literary device. Like, I don't know, I have I have very complex characters, right? And so rather than just explain something, I just flash back to something.
Yeah, it makes sense. If it makes sense and feels natural, who cares? Yeah. F, sorry. Okay, two sides of the same coin here. Real writers don't outline. Real writers must outline. The forever tension between pantsers and planners. That I give a BS grade to.
Mhm, mhm.
You are what you are. As Popeye said, I am what I am, and that's all what I am. If you are a
Yeah,
pantser,
you use what
it's all good.
works. Yeah.
Who cares? If you can remove a word without changing meaning, remove it.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that. I think that, so first of all, obviously filler words, right? Like,
Yes.
get
Yeah,
rid of
yeah,
filler words.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, if you can tighten up a sentence, why not? Again, dialogue is its own thing. We're not talking about dialogue, but otherwise in your prose, yeah, why not?
Make it tight. Don't use cliches, right? With the corollary that people do talk in cliches, which brings us to dialogue. I don't have
Mhm.
a problem with cliches in dialogue if it matches the voice of the person who's saying it.
Sure, that's a valid, like, character building thing, right? Like, if your character speaks in cliches or throws one out there every now and then, yeah, absolutely.
So when I took the writing fiction course through Oxford University Extension, one of the exercises that we had was writing cliches that don't feel like cliches, right? So cliches often start off as metaphors that are really striking and kind of hit something. So
Mhm.
everybody uses them because they capture something so perfectly. But when you keep doing it, that it starts leeching away its power, right? So how do you get to a cliche without like the power of a cliche, something really tight and snappy without using something overworked. So one of the this was one of the exercises we did. So for example, it was the expression the elephant in the room, right?
Mhm.
Or the elephant in the living room. So big issue everyone's aware of, but no, everyone's trying to ignore because discussion's uncomfortable. So it was come up with some other version of it. So here were some of the ones that I came up with. Some of these are better than others. Okay. So the snapping dog in the corner, the pool of blood on the floorboards, the flames licking at the curtains, the corpse in the rocking chair, the naked guest at the archbishop's dinner party,
These are fantastic.
the missing bride at the altar, the car that crashed through the wall, the shrieking baby in the bassinet, the fetid stench of hot rubbish, and the rusty nail in your forearm. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so it was you can do the same thing as a cliche, but do it in a interesting way and you're still getting at what the cliche is trying to express,
Yeah.
right?
I've always thought about it as, somebody else wrote that cliche. Write your own.
Yeah, do it. You're a writer. You could do it.
Yeah,
You got these
exactly.
things, they're called words. I would say, yeah, in terms of ranking, I'd probably put that A to S, yeah. Try not to use them.
Yeah, I would say an S. I don't know, unless you're trying to be there's always exceptions, right? Maybe you're trying to be ironic. Maybe somebody says it's like shooting fish in a barrel, and then you have a scene later where somebody actually shoots fish in a
Yeah,
barrel, right?
yeah,
And you're
exactly.
going for that wordplay, that humor or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, I'm
There's
with you
probably
on that.
good reasons for it, but
Yeah,
otherwise, yeah, I think it is
yeah.
there's no reason.
And the last one, read your dialogue out loud. S tier, absolutely 100% all of the time.
Mhm.
That is my hot take.
Yeah,
Please do.
yeah.
Because you may think it looks great on the page, and then you hear it and you're like, "No, that person sounds
And
illiterate."
if you can swing it, have somebody else read your dialogue out
Yeah.
loud.
Make friends, get them to read your dialogue.
Oh, if only.
If only, if only. So, okay, so if we're gonna rank these, what do we say are the absolute top ones? The god tier ones?
In terms of like, yes, these are
Yeah, yeah, these
the
these are these
rules.
are really good rules.
Well, yeah, I'm still gonna stand on adverbs. I just, yeah, I'm gonna plant my flag on adverbs and come at me, bro. I've seen my own work suffering under the load of it. I've seen published works that have suffered under the load of adverbs. And when I say load, it doesn't take much. So yeah, I'm gonna be that guy. I will also say that high on my list is get rid of your prologue unless you've got a damn good reason. I feel like if you write a prologue, whether you are traditionally published or whether you are indie published or whatever, you should have to stand in front of these judges. There should be like a prologue court. And any writer that ever writes it, you should have to stand there. You can be represented by a literary agent
I'm gonna age myself here by saying that when you said prologue court, I heard the People's Court Judge
Yeah.
Wapner,
Uh-huh.
theme co come in
Yeah,
my
the
head. Yeah,
so,
yeah.
yeah, you should, get yourself an attorney or whatever. You should stand before this panel of 5 judges and explain yourself, and then they'll make a ruling, and you have to abide by that.
Please come visit me in jail. Bring me nice things in jail. I'm not letting go of my adverbs. I'm gonna go with kill your darlings
Okay.
as somebody who's a convert to it. Yeah, just know where you hid the bodies because you can bring them back to life. You can be a little bit of a grave robber. They're your own words. I would probably put that as my number one, like S tier. But for junk, total trash rules that I do not agree with. I'm gonna go with writing what you know, misinterpreted, frequently wrong, gatekeepy. You know when it's right, let's say, but most of the time it's BS.
I'm gonna rewrite that rule. I'm gonna say
Okay,
write what you want.
I like this one. I prefer this one.
That's pretty
Yeah,
witty, right?
yeah,
That's
I
that's
think it is.
something that should be in a book.
Dude, you're writing book 3. You could do it in there. You got plenty of room. You're at what, 3,000 words in? You got plenty of room in there. Go
Yeah,
put it in there. I'd put that one as a solid F. So, well, this was a lot of fun, actually. I
this
have
was a lot of fun.
this was yeah, I mean, look, rules are training wheels, right? You should understand why they're there so you can break them on purpose, right? It
Yeah,
is more important
except
to
for prologues, which you
except for
should never do,
prologues. Yeah, I
which
will
you should
back you up
never
on
do,
yeah, never do the prologues.
and
Um,
adverbs. Go
no,
ahead. No,
no,
continue on.
no, no, no. So, it's more important to understand why the rule exists than to just follow it blindly, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And again, context. Think about what your genre is. Think about who you're writing for. Think about what your project is. Think about who you are as a writer. Stay true to your voice. Don't do something slavishly just because, God forbid, you listen to us. We don't know anything about anything
Fair enough.
for the most part. I can boil water. I have a kettle, but that's probably about it. So I thought we could talk about I would call it hot goss, but I'm real. This is lukewarm goss. People, come on, step up to the plate and give us some hot goss. It has been weak sauce this week.
What do we got?
God, it is a I am but a suffering writer. Another chapter in this series. Somebody who posted on Threads about wanting to withdraw from querying because they've been querying for a month and it's so hard. It's so
Mhm,
miserable.
mhm.
The rejections sting and it just sucks waiting and writing was wonderful and so much fun and I didn't do all this to be miserable and
Yeah,
will somebody talk me down from the ledge?
and when you talk about querying, let's, just for people that aren't quite in the know, we're querying for a literary agent to be traditionally published, right? Yeah.
And this is somebody who had actually I wasn't 100% clear whether or not they had gone through a small press or they were doing indie,
Mhm,
and doing it on their own, but they had already published, and now they wanted to be trad published to kind of get out there a little bit more. That was
mhm,
their
mhm.
motivation for looking for an agent.
So I will say right away, I have a lot of sympathy for that person. For anybody that has been in the query trenches, 1 month sounds like, a tip of the iceberg. It like I said, I queried for 2 years, right? I put myself through that hell for 2 years. So 1 month sounds like, man, I could do a month standing on my head. But it is hard. And you know what? That first month is probably one of the hardest months because that's when you get your first rejection letter. So I've always been of the impression when you're querying, you query until you run out of agents or you run out of steam. If you have run out of steam after a month, go ahead, quit. Having said that, I would encourage anybody who is, kind of at a very low point after a month. Well, so this is a numbers game. You have to, with very few exceptions, you must submit to an awful lot of agents before you get that yes. One month, unless you're querying, an ungodly number of agents in a month, which most people don't do. In 1 month, most people are typically going to query, 20, 30 agents, something like that, or even less. So I would encourage anybody that is feeling very low after a month to just hang in there, hang tight, keep with it, understand that it is a journey. It's not a reflection on your writing at all. Every agent is different. Every agent is looking for something different. You just haven't found your yes yet.
Yeah, and I would encourage anybody who is feeling bummed out, drop me a line. I've had a very weird attitude that I now understand is not normal, which is kind of like, whatever. I don't feel it, and maybe that's a function of being a lawyer, and I can write my heart out and have, absolutely great, solid legal and factual grounds for my motion, and it will still get denied.
Mhm.
And it can feel massively unfair, and some of these are more massively unfair than others. But other times you just go, "Okay," and then you just keep the case moves onwards, and you just keep going, and you try not to take it personally. I maybe because it's professional writing, I don't take any of those rejections personally at all. I just think,
Yeah.
"Okay, judge wasn't feeling it."
And for querying for a literary agent, I'm gonna say it, and querying writer, so I've been through this. I'm gonna say it anyway because I know when I was querying and somebody said this, I just wanted to, punch them in the face. And that is, don't take it personally, because we take it very personally. Like, don't let it down, but it does drag us down. Every time we get an email and it's another rejection, man, it just chips a little more away at your soul. So I totally get that. But it is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So
And look, you're an artist. At the end of the day, you're a writer, you're an artist. And artists need to get ready to be rejected regularly, more frequently than not, because art is subjective by definition. So you're going to hit with some people and not hit with others. It's just part of being an artist. And if you can accept that and understand that you are in the same boat as your friends who are actors, your friends who are painters and photographers and dancers. You are like them in what you do, and they feel the sting of rejection, but it's also so much a part of what they do. Talk to an actor about what they go through and how personal that can feel too. In many ways, what we do is very similar to acting. And we're not always going to be the right fit for people, even when what we do is beautiful. And it's just not gonna happen, and that's okay. We're artists.
so what I would say to this person who is considering giving up after a month, or maybe has given up, is, if you do need to step away, like for your own mental health, for God's sake, step away. You can always come back. There's no time limit, right? So if you need to stop querying, and I've actually known writers who stopped querying for a while to, mental health reason or whatever, stepped back, did something else, and then came back to querying. You can always do that too. So yeah, absolutely step away if you need to step away. On the other hand, just understand that it really is a marathon, not a sprint. It will take longer than a month. So
Yeah.
be prepared for that.
The other issue that this poster raised is that she was under the impression that most trad published authors are miserable right now, and that was kind of turning her off to this. Yeah, actually, I have seen that online quite a bit, is that the industry is there's a lot of people who feel very hard done by, but that's not something that I was necessarily picking up a lot on. It's the people, maybe the algorithm is pushing towards you people who are miserable. If you yourself are posting about how miserable you are trying to do the same thing. If you're in most social media spaces, not all, but many, you're going to be a slave to the algorithm. And if you're looking up and posting about misery, you're going to get more misery served up for you because they want to keep your eyeballs engaged. And if you're feeling like other people are feeling exactly how miserable you are, you feel like you're in, company with people who get you. Step back. Yeah, step, as the young folks say, touch grass.
There are trade offs between trad pub and self pub indie pub, small publishers, there's always a trade-off anywhere. I'm not sure I would say, there's a general malaise or whatever within published authors. I'm not a published author. Neither of us are. So I guess I can't speak for them, but I know some published authors that seem pretty happy anyway.
Yeah. We just met a whole
Likewise,
bunch of them.
yeah, yeah. And likewise, I've seen some self-pub authors on social media lamenting their situation. They can't sell a book or whatever. I don't know that you can make a general statement and be correct about the general mental health feeling of a particular demographic of like published authors. Everybody has to make a decision how they want to be published. You should do that research. You should figure it out. Do you want to go trad pub? Do you want to go indie? And it's okay to change your mind too, right? So if you have queried for a month and you think it's going to make you miserable and maybe self-pub is a better route to go, yeah, do it. Just understand what the trade-offs are, right? So with self-pub, you're wearing all the hats now, right? You're getting all the money, but you're also wearing all the hats. So,
Yeah. I will point out that I just was looking a little bit further into the comments, and this person said that she is self-published, and her reason to
cool.
get an
Go for
agent
it.
was really a practical one, which had a lot to do with late delivery of books to bookstore events.
Mhm.
And here's a problem that neither you nor I have: her book getting a write-up in the New York Times and not knowing what to do. So, yeah, sorry, a lot of my sympathy for this person has gone out the window.
No, I still sympathize with them. Quite frankly, if I'm not sure I would know what to do as a self-publisher if my book had been written up in the New York Times either. It's a good question. I probably wouldn't turn to social media to lament about it. I'd probably kind of try to figure it out. But yeah, no, God, querying is hard. Rejection is hard, man. And you are clearly the exception. But man, I remember.
I must be like, I don't know, smoking weed in my sleep or something like that, because I'm so chill about all of it that I am not a chill person. So I don't like, I am zero chill. I am a negative chill. But for some reason, when it comes to querying, I don't let any of it bother me.
I had gone into querying after researching everything, understanding that it was a marathon, not a sprint. And after sending out that first query letter, I think my first batch was small. I want to say 5 to 10, thinking how awesome it would be. It's sort of, when you buy a lottery ticket, right? How awesome would it be if I was one of those rare authors where that first agent just fell in love with my book,
Yeah, I had the same thought.
right? We all have that same thought.
Yeah, yeah.
It rarely plays out,
No.
but
It might happen to Rylan.
it might happen to
It might
Rylan.
happen to Rylan.
She
So,
had an amazing experience, which I will let her share if she wants to, but she had an incredible experience at the conference.
yeah, but not to puncture her balloon, I did have that editor tell me, "You will have no problem getting an agent," when I pitched book 1, and here I am a year later, no agent. But most of that is down to me.
Well, I
Agents,
was gonna
if
ask,
you're
how
listening,
many query letters have you sent out?
about 30.
Yeah. So,
Exactly. Yeah, 'cause, I press pause.
you're still a little baby.
I know, I know. That's why you don't hear me complaining about it.
211 query letters I sent out.
This is why I'm so chill about all of it, Kirk, is I know how many you sent out that I'm like, I sent out 30. So if I pause now and fix what I think are, kind of some issues,
Which is
then
smart, yeah, which
yeah,
is
then
smart.
I only burned through 30 of them. So, hey, yeah. And I got to say, I'm having reread the whole book now several times and reworking it. Number 1, I'm a lot more excited about this book than I've been in a while, and number 2, I just think it's a better book now.
Good,
So, yeah.
excellent.
Yeah.
I love hearing that.
Yes. So, our main takeaway from this evening of grading, you probably didn't think you were going to school, but you did end up going to school with us. We're not I'm not a teacher. But, really it comes down to a few things. Trust your instincts, right? If it feels right, it very well could be right. But more likely, if it feels wrong, it's probably wrong, right?
Mhm.
So know the rules. Do not be slaves to these rules, though. Understand why they're there and break them if you can. Be clever when you break them too. That's my one request. And also write the book that you want to read, because hey, if it dies, in the querying trenches, dies on sub, maybe you're the only person who's ever going to read it. So make sure you're writing the one that you want to read.
And the final takeaway, kill your
Yes.
adverbs. All your adverbs.
No! Kill your darlings.
That's right. That's
Kill
right.
your darling adverbs. Next week, we are going to have our first interview.
I'm so
And
excited. We've actually
yeah,
already done the interview, but
yeah,
I'm really excited for it to be out there.
yeah, I am too. And we're going to talk a little bit more about it online as it gets a little bit closer. And we are so excited to share this interview with you. It was so much fun.
So we did an interview with Amber Hamilton. She is the author of the forthcoming book, Seven Deadly Thorns. This is her debut novel. So just look her up on media. The story sounds fascinating. The book cover is amazing. Her publisher has done like a special edition. It's fantastic. We had a great time speaking with her, and you're going to get to listen to us speak with her next week. And so we're super excited. In the meantime, you should go out and pre-order Amber's book, Seven Deadly Thorns. It's
Available.
available
Yep.
wherever, right? Like
Wherever.
yeah. And in multiple languages.
Yes, which
Uh,
you'll hear about. To get to talk to somebody for whom this is all brand new, who has all of that enthusiasm and, "Oh my god, what am I doing?" It is so inspiring, and I really hope that you all will enjoy listening to this interview as much as we enjoyed having it with her. And if you're listening and you are an author or somebody who's published a couple of works already, we'd love to talk to you. Reach out. We can be a little snarky and weird on these, but we're we can also be nice.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're nice.
So yeah. Oh, I'll just poke you a little bit. So in the meantime, you can find us on all the socials. We're at Badlit Friends everywhere: Bluesky, Instagram, Threads. We're on YouTube. You can find us on all the major podcast forums, including the one you're listening to us on right now. And more reviews, please. As I said before, we will read them. We will laud you.
Join Pam.
Come on, you want to be the next one. So like, subscribe, review, send us bribes. As I said, my coffers are running low. I'm getting married next year. Help. You can send me a bribe. So like, subscribe, as we said, give us a review. We love to see them. So what am I trying to say? So thank you for listening to another episode of Bad Lit Friends, and we will see you next time.
Bye.